Welcome to another episode of Shameless Plugs Podcast with me, Samantha the Writer, and my delightful hat-wearing co-host, J.A. George.
I don't wear hats very often.
No, you don't.
I am wearing a hat today, yes.
So, we are here in this warm morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The bi-weekly weather report. It has been warm here.
Yes.
Like, almost shorts weather.
You know why it's warm, right?
Because it's going to snow on Monday?
No.
Oh.
No. Because it's almost time for Infinity War! Yes!
Yes! That is the reason!
It's clearly Lord Thanos' arrival.
Oh, yes.
He's warming up the atmosphere or something with the Infinity Stones. They'll always be gems to me, but, you know.
You know, old school.
All hail Lord Thanos. That's all I got to say.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He's the bad guy.
Yeah. Yes.
For those of you
Is he, though? Is he?
Well, I feel like that plays into our last episode, where we discuss characters.
Maybe the Avengers are the bad guy. Maybe Thanos is really going to do some great things for the universe, and they're just standing in his way. Not letting it happen.
That's possible. There are a lot of good guys who stand in the way of bad guys. So reverse those roles and...
Anyway.
Yeah, all right.
That's not what we're here to talk. Especially I would love to dedicate an episode to that.
Well, but in a strange twist of lead-in,
yes,
it does kind of play into what we're talking about today. Enemies, you as your own worst enemy.
Yes.
When it comes to... writing.
Which, for those of you who have read the Infinity Gauntlet, you would know that Thanos proved to be his own worst enemy, but I digress. So...
But did you really? Did you really digress?
No, not really.
No, I didn't think so, yeah. No. Mm-mm.
Yes, we are talking today about being your own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Being your own critic, being your own worst enemy. We're going to talk about some of the things that we do to sabotage ourselves, and some ways that you can hopefully overcome standing in your own way.
Yeah, which is really important because as a writer, it's easy to say, I'm going to write today, and then not.
And I'm probably going to be my own worst enemy on this episode, and I'll tell you why. Because normally, I don't like script out my thoughts or anything, but I have some thoughts about what I want to talk about and some points that I want to bring up. I'm totally pantsing this episode. My skin is crawling from being a pantser.
It's really not that bad.
Yeah, it really is.
It's really not that bad. It's a lot of fun, actually.
No.
You never know where you're going.
It's nerve-wracking and horrible.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway.
Well, I'm not nauseous because I didn't have to plot this out. I mean... All right, yeah, so...
So what are some ways that you get in your own way, Samantha the writer?
Oh, there are a plethora of ways. Probably the biggest thing for me, though, is when I sit down, like, all right, I've got a couple hours, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do this writing thing, and then I look around my house and go, but I got to empty the dishwasher. And then I empty the dishwasher, and I'm like, well, since I did that, I might as well sweep the floor, because I'm right here.
Yeah.
And then I walk into, the living room, I'm like, oh, man, Steven didn't put the pillows back on the couch. I can do that really fast. That won't take a lot of time. And then by the time I finally get to my computer, I've lost an hour, and... that cuts down on my writing time. So I think my biggest thing is the delay. And it's not that I don't want to write, because I definitely want to write. But there's something easier about, quote unquote, delaying the writing to me. I find all these little things.
Yes.
And I'm like, if I just do this one thing, I'll be able to focus.
Yeah.
If I just do this one thing, I'll be able to focus. So that is one of my biggest things. And then once I get on my computer, it's word twist. It's a game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I finally get there, but there is like I don't know. That's the internal source, obviously. There are external sources as well, but that's like what I do to myself to sabotage my own writing.
I have a lot of them.
Yeah?
Do you want to hear all of them? Because there's a bunch of them.
I mean, we've got some time, but... Pick your favorite.
And imagine me doing air quotes around this. Research is one of the biggest ones.
Research.
I'll sit down, I'll start writing, I really need to understand what life is like in prison. I need to start researching. That's an actual one that I did, by the way. That is an actual distraction, a research distraction that interrupted my writing. So I'm not just pulling that out of nowhere, but I start researching, and I read one article, and then I click on a link, and then I read another, and then after about 15 minutes, I'm just reading the news. Research is one of my big distractions because I start with good intentions and then I just completely go off the rails, or
devolve.
I am a justifier. That's another thing that I do. I am a justifier. I'll be like, well, if I go on Twitter, I'm still doing something related to writing. Yeah. I'm still promoting the author platform.
Oh, yeah.
And then an hour and a half later, I'm still on Twitter, and now I'm just posting in hashtag games, and I'm not doing anything to help my writing in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
The other one that gets me is the background noise.
That's interesting.
I'm a movie junkie.
Oh, yeah.
I'll think to myself, I'm writing a scene about a car chase. I should put on Baby Driver in the background to inspire me. And then I'm watching Baby Driver and not writing. Or, I do that. That's another one that I do all the time. And again, all of these things, I have good intentions. And they just don't work out for me. They are what they are. They're me procrastinating. I justify in my head that I'm not procrastinating, but I'm procrastinating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think, for me, it's really hard to write when other people are around, or, in my space. So,
yes.
I write at my house, primarily. I will sometimes take, a notebook to a coffee shop to jot down an idea, but I don't do the coffee shop writing thing. So if, I'm at home, and then Steven gets home, I'm like... Oh, you're home. Okay, let's do stuff. If, he's taking a nap or something, I'll write a little bit, but then once he wakes up, it's like, I want to do stuff with you, my person.
Yes.
So, Steven is my husband for those first-time listeners.
Yes.
Not just some random dude who comes into my house. That to me is and it's a really good distraction, but it is something that will prevent me from writing in the evenings or, and I think that, but honestly, that to me is probably one of my favorite distractions, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Along the same lines, because, I am married, I do have kids, I'm not going to choose writing over spending time with my little people.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to spend time from us doing family things. I'm just not going to do that. And that's part of why I have to get up at ungodly early hours. I get up at 4:30. For those of you who haven't, I think I've talked about this on past episodes, but for those of you who didn't listen to those episodes, first off, go listen to them now.
Yeah, please go listen to them.
Go back and listen to our past episodes, shamelessplugspodcast.com. Yeah, there you go.
That's the one.
But I get up at 4:30 because I don't want to take time away in the evening from time with my wife and my kids. I already work a job where, I work more than, I don't know how many hours a week, but certainly more than 40. I already only get a few hours with them every day, so if I'm going to sacrifice something, it's going to be my own sleep. So,
yeah.
But I'm not going to sacrifice the writing, so I get up at 4:30, and that's when I go to the gym, or I write, or whatever I am using that time for. Lately, I have been foregoing the gym because I am in the home stretches of editing a novel and getting ready to go the query route, but I'm see, this is what happens when I pants. I'm just completely digressing and going off on tangents. So
no, you're good because I think you touch on something that's part of this episode and kind of important. It's self-motivation. It's figuring out the best times for you to write.
Yes.
So you know, what you're saying is, like, I have this thing that I'm really passionate about, which is my family.
Yeah.
And I have this other thing that I'm really passionate about, which is my writing.
Yes.
So I know that I've got this chunk of time to write in.
Yeah.
And that can be motivating.
Yes, absolutely can. The reason why I went down that tangent was distractions, and I could never write in a coffee shop. I could never write in public. You mentioned that, you know, you're distracted if there are people around. I could never write in a public setting like that. My head would be on a swivel. It would be, ooh, something shiny. Ooh, something shiny. And, you know this. My dad was a cop. I have to be like, if I go to a restaurant, I don't like having my back to the door. It's not because I think anything is going to happen, but it's just a habit I got from my dad that I always want to look around and make sure I know what's going on. You know, it's walk in a room, know where the exits are. It's just something ingrained in me. So I could never write in public. I need that distraction-free time. For me, that time is the morning before anybody's up. There's no noise from the street. There's no noise from the kids. There's no noise from the TV. And unless I sabotage myself and turn it on.
Turn it on,
But finding that time that works for you, that time, that place, that's a key factor, I think, in overcoming those distractions and, not being your own worst enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, that's, Steven and I work really different schedules. So I've got a classic, we'll go 9 to 5, but sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later. But either way, it's Monday through Friday, those days. His schedule's all over the place. So I try to be very strategic in planning my writing time around that. Because I know that when he's home, I want to spend time with him. So I try to be very, very particular about that time.
Right.
So I'm getting my writing done in the best headspace for me, and then also being able to do the things that I want to do. And I know that bucks some theory out there that you should write at the same time, you should write for the same amount of time, you should do this. But that doesn't work for me in my lifestyle.
Right.
And it's realizing what works best for you in your lifestyle. If what works best for you and you are the most motivated at the same time of day to write your 4 pages at that time, then do that. Because ultimately the goal is to not get in your own way. But if you're a little more flexible and your schedule's a little more flexible like mine, I found that it's, realizing what time I have and knowing that that's the only time I have that really gets me focused.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a plotter pantser thing, but this is a you-me thing.
Yeah.
I'm a plotter, and writing the same time every day works for me. You're a pantser, and being more flexible works for you. I really don't think that's a plotter pantser thing, but it's interesting how that kind of lined up that way.
It is, yeah.
But I think finding the time, finding the place is really important, but figuring out what motivates you is also really important, and that can take a lot of forms. It could be what your end goal is. That could be your self-motivation. It could, whether you want to hit the bestseller list or whether you just want to be able to quit your office job, whether you just are motivated by the idea of getting your stories out there and you don't care about sales figures. Those are all worthwhile goals. Whatever your goal is, that motivation is really important. But I think the other aspect of motivation is the short-term motivation. Those are, to me, kind of the long-term motivations, why you keep doing what you're doing. The day-to-day, I think, is going to vary also for every writer, but it's what motivates you to sit down and write for that one session. Are you setting yourself a deadline to finish 6 chapters in 4 weeks? Are you setting yourself a deadline to have your novel done or your short story collection done by the end of June? Setting those deadlines for yourself, if that's what works for you, use it.
Yeah. Are you a page count person? Are you a word count person? Are you a time person? Do you say, I'm going to write for 30 minutes straight, whatever I get out of it, I get out of it?
Yes.
What is that thing that makes writing enjoyable and holds you accountable for it?
And you may not know yet. You might need to try a few things and figure that out. That's okay.
Yeah.
Give them a try and see what works for you.
Right, because ultimately the goal is to figure it out and write.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's what
exactly.
you're doing, you know?
Exactly.
So writing is personal on a lot of levels, including the process that gets you there.
Yeah, and maybe even your reward is something else, like I'm going to buy that new video game, or I'm going to buy tickets to that show I wanted to go to if I hit X goal, whether, again, it's a deadline or a word count or a time writing, whatever that is. If that's what motivates you, use it.
Yeah. Yep. Rewards are great. I mean, you know, if you know that that's something that is good for you, use it. You know, if you're like, okay, I really want to start this new book that I got, but I also want to do my writing, bargain with yourself. Say, okay, I've got 2 hours. I'm going to write for an hour. I'm going to read for an hour. And maybe you get on a really good spree with the writing and it goes over an hour.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
But you've bargained with yourself. You're ready to go. I have got a lot of hand gestures this morning.
You
I'm
are.
like...
I'm about to get hit, I feel like.
It is a whirlwind over here. It's just all hands.
Yes. So what motivates you? I'm putting you on the spot, sorry.
No, it's good. No, just the answer's funny. So what motivates me is the fact that I know that I don't have a lot of time. Like, I have a deadline in mind for the novel. I'd like to have it ready to go in July so I can start my query process.
Yes.
But for me, it's the fact that I know that my writing time every week is limited. So it's writing on lunch at work. It's taking that 45 minutes and hashing something out because I know that I have 45 minutes at that time. Or it's, you know, if I am working on the weekends, it's, oh, okay, I know that I've got 2 hours here before I have to go and hang out with mom, or I'm going to lunch. So those are my 2 hours. That's all I've got. So for me, it's this sense of urgency, maybe? Maybe that's the best way to say it. It's like, I don't have any other time. I have to do it now.
Yeah, I get it.
And that's in keeping that focus, because it's really easy for me to, like I said, look at, you know, my carpet and realize I should vacuum, or hear the dryer go off and be like, I should fold laundry right now.
Yes.
Like, those are really easy things for me to slip into. So, yeah, but it's focusing on how much time I don't have.
Right. That's interesting.
Motivates me.
Gotcha. Okay. That's a new one. I have not heard that one before.
Yeah, what about you? What do you do?
I'm a deadline guy. Deadlines help me, and long term, the goal for me is to, I would of course love to be on, okay. So my long-term goal is really to see my books turned into movies, because I'm a movie junkie.
Yep.
But I want to just be able to write for a living. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm tired of the office grind. I mean, I've been doing it for way too long. I'm tired of the office grind. I don't want to deal with that anymore. So for me, setting the short-term and long-term deadlines helps, because my long-term deadline is I really want an agent by the end of this year. By the end of 2018, I want to have an agent so that I know there is a light at the end of that tunnel to get me out of being an office drone. The short-term goal then is, okay, I really want to be done editing my novel by the end of April so that I can send out queries, start those going out by the end of May, and give myself a few months to find that agent, you know? So the deadlines help me, and I'm not somebody who beats myself up if I miss a deadline. I might be a little irritated with myself, because, I mean, my goal was to have the novel completely done with editing and everything by the end of February. Some things came up in real life that prevented that from happening. Some
IRL.
Yes. Some things came up that interfered with that goal. You know, didn't beat myself up, but set the next goal. Okay, end of March. And, you know, I didn't happen again, but I'm really close now. I'm within 60 pages of being done with my novel. Out of a 350-page novel, I only have 60 to go. So April is doable.
Go, April!
Yeah.
Go, April! Go, April!
So deadlines are what work for me.
Nice.
If I know that I've got a point that I'm trying to hit, that helps me say, okay, you better sit down and write today. Don't let yourself get distracted, because you're only a couple weeks away.
Yeah. So. No, that's awesome. And it's awesome you're only a couple weeks away. Maybe
Yes.
Elf apocalypse won't happen.
Yes, our listeners don't know what that is.
It's okay.
Just know that elephants might be falling from the sky if I don't hit my writing goals. It might happen.
It may happen, but it's going to be okay. Because he's going to hit his writing goal.
I'm going to hit my goal, yeah.
And we apologize the past 2 months for anyone who may have been clobbered by a falling elephant.
Or, dealing with the potholes.
Yeah.
I mean,
potholes would be terrible.
Elephant potholes, they're big.
And elephants were also sorry because you weren't meant to fly.
Exactly. So, we do not condone the dropping of elephants for the record.
That would take a really big machine.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
But anyway, moving on. What?
Those are all kind of internal motivation.
Right. But there are things externally that can motivate as well.
Yes.
Like...
Such as...
See, okay, I guess that's the thing. So, like, internally, my motivation is this whole, like, I don't have a lot of time, but my external motivation is similarly, every time I walk into the office.
For those of you who don't know, Samantha and I do work together.
We do,
so
we do.
I'm laughing because I completely understand where that comment is coming from.
So, like, my external motivation is, like, when I get up in the morning and I'm getting ready for work. And I do enjoy my job. So, like, let's not confuse this with, like, I hate my job. But
no.
I like what I do. I get to be creative at my job. Like, and there are some great people there. But I will say this, like, every time I walk into the office, I'm like, man, I cannot wait until my office is my writing.
Exactly.
Like, that is my... So that, to me, is my external motivation.
Yes.
It's, like, that repetition of... Man, I'm not loving this.
Right.
I don't love what I do every day.
I dedicate myself to what I do. I work hard.
Yep.
I think I do a good job. But ultimately, it's not what I want to do with my life. So to your point, that's a big part of my external motivation. Yeah. It's not that I hate my job. It's not that I hate my coworkers or anything like that. It's just, it's not what I want to do with my life. I don't feel like I was built to be an office drone.
Right. No, and I agree with that completely. And so, in any little frustrating thing that happens in the office, for me, is motivation to move on.
Yes.
It's motivation to come home and really use the time that I don't have.
Exactly.
To focus on my novel, to hang out with my characters, to progress, and hit that goal of having it done in July. Like, that is my external motivation.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's similar. It's not like I believe that all of a sudden life is going to be this magical, perfect wonderland if I get a publishing contract. It's not like all of a sudden there are not going to be any frustrations in dealing with an agent or an editor or a publisher, because any job you're going to have frustrations, you're going to have personality conflicts, you're going to have, things are not going to go perfectly.
Nope.
But it's just knowing that I'm living life on my terms and that I have that freedom, that I'm not answering to corporate whims and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Well, you still would be somewhat, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Right. But it's you're able to freely voice your opinion in a different way than you can now.
Yes. Yes. So, those are external motivation. Those are kind of straddling internal and external.
A little bit, yeah.
I think there's some other external motivations that you can use too. And those are the people around you.
Oh, yeah.
It's friends and family members. Finding somebody who will hold you accountable. Somebody who you trust enough to... who will hold you accountable, who won't just give you a pass and give you an out and let you get away with not hitting your writing goals, but find that person, whether it's a spouse or a sibling or a parent even, finding, or just a good friend. Finding that person who is going to hold you accountable for your writing goals and who's going to take you to task or motivate you in another way, in a more positive way.
I mean...
they could do good things if you hit your goals or do bad things if you don't. I mean, either way, whatever works for you and your person.
It's interesting because to some extent, podcast hosts.
Podcasts.
Do-do-do. Podcast co-hosts is what I was trying to say. We hold each other accountable. There's a lot of, in the office when we're getting ready for lunch or something, there's a lot of over the cubes. Are you going to write today?
Yeah.
Good! You have to write today!
Yes.
Like, there's, it's kind of, it's...
That's usually Samantha yelling that at me, by the way.
It's very true, yeah, I do. I do yell over the cube. I'm like, are you going to write today? And you're like, I'm thinking about going out to lunch. You will not go to lunch!
That's right. That's right.
You will sit at your desk and you will get your novel done.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I do think, though, other writers can hold you accountable.
Yes.
If you have another writer who you have a rapport with and who you can kind of bounce ideas off of, or who you can say, man, I'm not feeling writing today, and have them, yell at you or give you an inspirational quote or whatever you need.
Yes.
I think that outside of friends and family, which are awesome motivators, I think other writers can also be great motivators.
And critique partners too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There are writers out there that I would trust to motivate me. There aren't as many that I would trust to read my stuff and give me valid feedback. There are a handful of those, but if you've got that critique partner, that other writer that you trust, whether they're a critique partner or not, actually, if you've got that other writer who understands what you're going through in a way that friends and family members may not, use them.
Yeah.
Take advantage of that.
Use them. And be the same thing for someone else.
Exactly.
Though. Like, don't just be the one who constantly needs motivating. Yes. Also be a motivator, because I think it changes your perspective on writing. It's like if you're just relying on someone to say, go for it, you can do it, go for it, then you're not really learning the self-motivation. Yes. Because if, every time that I tell J.A., sit down and write, in my head I'm going, oh, shoot, I need to sit down and write. Yes. Like, I need to do the same thing. Yeah. So it's like this great kind of motivating dynamic. And do that for someone else.
And frankly, I think having another writer that you can talk to can be motivating in and of itself. The fact that, after lunch, Samantha and I will run our lunch bags out to our car. Yeah. And pretty much every time it's like, oh, so how was your writing today? Yeah. We're talking about what we accomplished, and that's motivating in and of itself. Yeah, and so find someone who can do that for you if that's what you need. But that touches on something else that we mentioned at the beginning, but we haven't really talked about. That can also be a really good way to overcome being your own worst critic. Yes, it can. Talking about the things that you're excited about, that you're doing well, and not just complaining when things don't go right. We're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it too. Absolutely. So that is not a criticism. I complain when things don't go my way, and I'll get frustrated and I'll stop writing, I'll take a break or whatever, but talking about those things that went well can remind you, this is why I do this, this is what I love about writing, and having somebody else that you can talk to that about. It doesn't have to be a writer. For me, it helps for it to be a writer, but I mean, talking about that with my wife, who's not a writer, is still exciting to me. It's still motivating. And it's kind of also interesting, if you talk to another writer and you're talking about like, oh, my character, I'm trying to do this thing, but it's not working, da-da-da-da. If you say that to a writer, another writer's going to go, oh, I totally get it, and like ask kind of these prying questions and stuff. When you say that to a spouse, it's fun to watch their face, because I've done this to Steven. I'll be like in the middle of something and he'll get home from work and I'll turn around in my chair and I'll be like, oh my gosh, and be like, how's the writing going? And I'm like, oh, I just can't figure out where I want my character to go. Christopher's making these decisions and he's doing these things and it's annoying and I just and Steven's response to that is usually, okay, good luck. Leslie says, oh, I'm sorry. But they are a really good sounding board, because in that moment, if you're able to voice it and form it in a way that's like a question, like, hey, do you think if Christopher made decision A or decision B, as a person who is not in the world, which one is more interesting to you, or which one do you think you could get more into? Like, you can use your non-writing person to kind of give you the world perspective. Yeah. Because as a writer, at least for me, I get so in my world sometimes that I'm like, oh, this is the thing that's happening, and I know this is the thing that's happening, and then I forget that people don't know everything about my story like I do. Right. Right. Absolutely. And, you know, my wife has... I've incorporated several things based on her suggestions. She'll tell you that I don't listen to anything she says, any of her feedback, but that's not true. For the record, there are characters named based on names that she came up with. There are plot points that are adapted from ideas that she gave me, so, you know, they can be great sounding boards to Samantha's point, and they give you a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that the last external motivation, if you're working with somebody, a friend or family member, if you need the external motivation, if this is what works for you, I think you should use this as well. The spouse fund. Or the friend fund.
Yeah.
Or the SIGO fund.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
If you don't hit your goals, you have to put X amount of money in, or you have to do X nice thing for another person. You know, if that's the if that's going to be motivation for you, use it. Whatever it is, whatever kind of external or, you know, whatever external motivation you can find that involves another person, that you owe them something or you're going to do something for them. If that's what works for you, use it.
Yep. Steven, that doesn't work for me. Just so you know.
I've tried to do that with Leslie and it didn't work. We actually tried, it didn't work.
Nope.
She did not like holding me accountable.
Yeah.
That was miserable for her, not for me.
Yeah, right. So, cool. Well, I think we're at the end, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's it. That's everything we wanted to discuss today. But if you're listening outlets, we want to hear from you.
Yeah. What do you want to discuss?
Yeah, what do you want to discuss? What do you think about what we said today? Was it helpful? Was it utter garbage?
I mean, but...
you know where to send that.
Yeah,
if it's utter garbage, you know where to send it.
Yeah, you know where to send it. Yeah. So, the dump.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you want to have a conversation with us, please reach out. We are on Twitter at Plugs Podcast. JA will waste some time on there if you want to get in touch with him.
So if you want to sabotage my writing, kidding.
Yeah,
kidding.
if you're in the sabotage business, send us a message on Twitter. Again, at Plugs Podcast, and we are also on Instagram, Shameless Plugs Podcast, as well as on the internet at www.shamelessplugspodcast.com.
Yes. That'll do it. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.